is what we're trying to build. If they don't fund that, we wouldn't go ahead with the work. The other half of the program that they haven't confirmed funding for is work on council roads that we have funded our share, so 44%, and we would go ahead with the work, but only spend that 44% rather than the 100% that we've built into our asset management plans and budgets. So the loss of their funding makes it harder for us to deliver all of the work that our roading engineers have defined in the asset management plan.
Yeah, just on that, David.
You stand up.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. Being lazy. I've got my question now. Just on that, my understanding in our long-term plan is a rural road strategy, and would we be developing that before we made that decision around not, assuming we didn't get the funding, which would come first? Because it seems to me it would be much smarter that we had our strategy and made that very clear, and then if I know time is probably against us in that, but it's kind of, I think, better for us to be very clear around our intentions before something happens and it is then a surprise to the community. So yeah, just interested in the fact that you were saying we would not then go ahead with that work.
I'm not sure if Mez can answer it, but this roading strategy, rural roading strategy, is a wider than just Masterton, and it involves the changing land use, where forestry is taking over some farmland, and therefore there's no one living at the end of a road. Those are the bigger picture questions I think that that strategy needs to address, and whether the council is going to carry on putting money into roads that have very low usage. It doesn't change our work program as it stands at the moment in the budgets.
For me, then, I think we should be front-footing that and letting that community know.
We have included the road prioritisation plan, strategy, which is in our LTP work programme, and once we have the LTP out of the way, we know that this is really important, so we can start work on that. What will happen is that decision around funding will come partway through the development of that strategy. And we also, as I mentioned before, the regional work around climate change adaptation will be a good tool for us to be able to have some evidence to base that strategy on. So it's all going to happen at the same time.
David, could I ask you, could Waka Katahi give us 50% of what we need, rather than, or is it everything or nothing?
Yeah, they will have a national pot of money, and they're looking to allocate that out. And it's hard to pick. I'm not close enough to even to the advisors. Kane is probably the best person to ask that question. But our expectation would be we'll be getting something. Yeah. It won't be an all or nothing.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No further questions? Okay, somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 58 regarding the long-term plan. Somebody prepared to, well, I actually prepared to, I'll move that. Councillor Bailey, second. Any discussion?
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Nelson.
Just for all the reasons I've gone over again and again and again, I'm not supporting the adoption of this long-term plan. I can repeat my arguments, but I won't.
Thank you very much. Any other? Just got yes, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I'm of a similar look. There's some good things in the long-term plan. And, for me, one is the investment in water storage. It's a significantly important investment for our community. There's been some great reductions in the rates from when it started at 14-something%, and so compliments, David, to you and your team for weaving some magic and getting that down to where it is now. And it doesn't seem like there's major cuts in expenditures, and you've been able to do that. But for me, I can't support a plan when we're making significant decisions and significant financial expenditures without justification, without rock-solid, evidence-based justification. And that's the case with our 3 bills. I also think, and we've talked about it a lot and we've done very little about it, is that, and I appreciate, I've been on council for a couple of years now and I'm starting to understand how things work and how people work. And I know it's like a big sort of slow-moving machine, and it's all based around this long-term plan and the annual plans, and people have to fit in and follow the processes. And I know how limiting that can be in terms of trying to do things quicker or smarter or differently. So I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate all the work that goes into it and the long hours that people have spent on it. But for me, we've talked about doing a vision for our town. We've talked about being strategic for our town. We've talked about decision making that is evidence-based in all our decisions. And I don't see us doing that. I don't see an alignment between all the expenditures in our long-term plan and a clear strategy and a clear vision. And I think until we get to that point, I don't think we're doing our job as governors. I feel we're doing an amateur job. And so I think we need to be much better in that strategic space. And we know that all the requests that people have of us, they're going to be good things for our town, or for some group in our town. But we operate on a limited resource. And what good governance does is looks at that limited resource and what are the best priorities, given that resource, to benefit the town. We're not having those discussions. And that saddens me. And I guess lastly for me, I know we've had a 2 or 3 hour session on priorities, and infrastructure was a high priority for pretty much everybody. And it's the bulk of our spending, I get that. But if we look at the real investment in infrastructure over time, except for roading, and the real investment is the amount of money we're spending divided by the cost rises and the outputs we're getting, it's declining. And I don't think we can, we're seeing massive issues all around the country in poor infrastructure, and we need to relook at that. And that's been strategic. So for those reasons, even though there's things in the plan I like and support, at this point I won't be able to support the plan today.
Councillor Leonard, any further? Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you. Well, and the people I talk to are excited about this plan. After our deliberations meeting last week, maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, I've had a lot of the community come up to me in all shapes and forms from different areas of the community, commend us on a plan that actually has some actions and has some tangible outcomes. Yep, we're not going to agree on everything, but there's some excitement in the community about some projects that we are going to deliver and that are going to be positive change for our town. So I'm going to certainly adopt the long-term plan. And I also think as councillors, we've done a bloody good job as elected members to, thrash things out, and I appreciate we don't agree on everything. I think it's a wonderful thing, not a bad thing at all. But it's been a tricky process, a long process. But I think, whatever you take from it that you agree with and what you don't, I think we could all sit around here, staff included, and be proud of what we have achieved and what we're going to achieve in the long term. And I think it's great to have a 10-year plan that actually shows some positivity, vibrancy. Yes, we're spending some money, but we're going to have some things that we can actually see. And we're still keeping our priorities as the important pieces. So I'll be certainly adopting it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodwin?
I'll be opposing this adoption. At the end of the day, council went out and consulted with the public, and we had quite a good response too, quite a lot of respondents. And council ended up adopting all its own recommendations on the big ticket items and changed their mind on anything, which is not unusual, and it's one of the reasons people often cite that they won't engage with us. That's why our rating is fairly low when we ask them what they think of us, Masterton being particularly low in New Zealand. And yeah, I would hope somehow that we can do a lot better.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further comments? Councillor Tutor.
I feel that I must stand and say that it may look as if I'm changing my line again, but I'm not. I had a priority list, which you've already heard about, and so I will be supporting the long-term plan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tutor, any further? Just from my own point of view, I concur actually with Councillor Lennox, not surprisingly, I guess. I think that we've had it's been a difficult lead up into this long-term plan, but I think this council's handled it really well. I look back on a reasonably long time now, 14 years on the councils, and I believe that this long-term plan process has been the best that I've had, and we've had a number of people, and I think some of the messages have been sent to you people, from people outside saying they've also appreciated the fact of how we've gone about our business. I don't think we have anything to be ashamed of. I think we've worked damn hard, we've been constructive. Sure, there's been disagreements, but that does happen. And, you know, for me, this whole, when I look at this long-term plan, and being in a position, a privileged position of mayor, I see the remarkable job that the staff does to present this document. Many long hours, a lot of challenges from councillors and others, and they've come up with, I think, a terrific document and one that we can be proud of and very comfortable in adopting. So that's where I sit. I have moved this adoption. Councillor Bowyer has seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion that the recommendations on page 58 be approved. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
Division.
It's passed. Division? Yeah. Okay, right, I'll just to go through that then. If you are in favour, raise your right hand. 5, 6. Against? Thank you. We now go to page 67, the rates resolution 2024-2025. And David, you'll be taking that too, will you?
Hello, yes. The rates resolution is based on the revenue and financing policy that was reviewed last year, adopted in April this year, where there were some changes made to some of the rates and the allocation of some rates between different rating mechanisms, so uniform charges and value-based rates. The consultation flagged the changes at the individual property level and what effect it had. Now the new budgets are applied to that policy, and so at the individual property level, rates will change because of council's budgets, because of changes in the revenue and financing policy, and because of changes in their valuations that they received earlier this year. So people's values have changed. They've been, our rating base has been adjusted for those valuations. People's rates will increase or decrease by if they vary from the average value change. So it's very hard to predict that the average rate increase is going to affect every property at the same level. Every property will actually be not the average. It'll be somewhere around the average or above or below the average. So the rates are listed in the rates resolution. Each rate type and the rate in the dollar for that rate type, or the amount of the uniform charge, and whether they're targeted to a particular group of ratepayers, is listed as part of the rates resolution. We've had a legal review of the wording and the reference to the parts of the Local Government Rating Act to make sure that if we had something wrong and we adopted the error, then there could be a challenge. We've made sure there aren't errors in this. This will achieve the revenue that's in the long-term plan for year one. The rating base may still change. We had more valuation changes came through this morning. The potential for this to actually generate slightly more rates because of those new values still coming through the system is always there, but it will be in the margins of small points of percentages. And it's always good to have a small buffer in terms of the rates struck, because this is the one opportunity the council has to generate the 60% of the revenue needed to fund the council's operations. We can't go back to the ratepayers halfway through the year and say we actually need some more money. Setting the rates here is setting the rates for the next 12 months. It sets 65% of our revenue for the next 12 months. That's why it's a significant decision to make to get this rates resolution passed and the revenue generated, and the rates will go out accordingly in the middle of July, first instalment due in August.
Thank you. Any questions for David? Councillor Turner.
Have you just said that the slight windfall we received, that we were told about, won't affect the rates? You know, they'll still be going to ask, if we were asking for 10%, that would still be the we're asking.
Yes. Yeah, if we've got another group of properties valued, say a subdivision comes through and there's some more value that we can set rates on, and it generates another $15,000 worth of rates that we haven't factored in here, instead of the revenue that we are looking to generate here, we'll get $15,000 more.
We'll just go into our coffers, sort of.
We'll report that through the year, that we budgeted what it might be, 48 million, but we've got 48 million and 15,000 will be how we report it, and it becomes one of the overs and unders as we report through the year. Same as we report expenditure, we may spend more or less on any budget item. This revenue item becomes an overs and unders. At the moment, we now predict that we will have a small over in that revenue.
So the over isn't passed on to the ratepayers?
If we got that information a week ago, we could have built it into the rates in the dollar, and there might have been a small adjustment down in one of the rates, or several of the rates, so that it might have made $1 or $2 effect on every property. But we've got to have a cut-off, and information coming through late means it's too late to amend.
Councillor Turner, any further questions, David? No further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 67. Moved by Councillor Bowyer, seconded Councillor Helena. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Holmes.
I have to say I'm disappointed that the rural rates are so high, because the only thing they do get from this council is roading. You know, I must insist that we have to push forward with the forestry road. We must push forward with that. And with working with the three councils, we can do it together. The other thing that's annoyed me is the management cost of road management costs of any tenders 40%. And I'd like to see this council at the local body AGM. I'd like to see them submit a remit to exploring the way that we can reduce that. Simeon Brown came out the other day and he said he was concerned about it. But I think if the councils, local government councils, can get behind something, I think that would be a great advantage. And the other way we can reduce our running costs, obviously, is the use of local metal. I was involved with GW the other day, metal for the Riverside, big boulders for Riverside, worked with the river, the plum from Taranaki. And it was just crazy. And we've got to look at tenders. We've got to have a yarn to our friends out in Tanui to make sure they open their gravel pit up and make consistent things. But as I said, I think we've done a wonderful job. Disappointed with the rural rate increase. Some of those guys out there are really struggling at the moment, but I take on board what everybody said. Stella and Gary said it's upwards and onwards, and the old story is you never look back, moving forward.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the contribution you make in terms of the rural side of things. You've been a very strong advocate of us looking at that rural rates, and you keep going, David, you'll get your way one day, eh? Councillor Nelson?
Just for Councillor Holmes, don't forget the rural ratepayers do have access to our youth civic centre that will have built. Our library that's being upgraded and the buildings that are going to be used by the council staff at the moment.
But also the town people have use of our roads going into the town of Castle Point.
When you say nothing, they're getting those things and spending about $50 on.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson, for being so positive. Okay, this moved by Councillor Bayes, seconded by Councillor Helena. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again? Thank you. Okay, page 76, adoption of the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TAB venues policy. I understand that Councillor Johnson has conflict. Karen?
Hand over to Steph.
Oh, Steph.
Already on my way. Kia ora koutou. So today we are seeking your adoption of an amended gambling policy, which includes some additional wording that just sets out the circumstances under which council would consider temporary relocation of gambling venues in Masterton. That's following the direction we received from this council at your meeting on 8th of May. So in proposing the additional wording, which is included in the report, policy, we have considered advice from our planning and building departments, as well as the feedback that came through from submissions and the discussions that we understood from the deliberation meeting of the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. So the proposed additional wording would enable venues to apply to the Hearings Committee to be considered for relocation following an adverse, so it's when the existing venue requires remedial repairs following an event like a fire, flood, or maybe an earthquake. We have proposed that there would be an initial sort of 12-month duration on that, recognising feedback from our planning team that that's generally considered an appropriate temporary period, and as well as considerations around repair timeframes, noting that for sort of minor damage and that could generally be achieved in a 12-month period. For more extensive damage, you would be looking beyond that, which is why we have proposed including an option for renewal applications to be considered by the committee on a 6-monthly basis. And we've also included in there additional protections that the existing policy has, to just clarify that those would also apply to that, including that the venue could not temporarily establish in an area that is most deprived area, so to protect our vulnerable communities there. So that's up for your discussion and consideration today. The next steps would be that it would go to South Wairarapa and Carterton in July, so they haven't yet ratified the policy. So Masterton is the first to consider the policy today. So you'll note in the recommendations we have just asked to adopt with any potential changes that might come through from South Wairarapa and Carterton in respect of their venue relocation policy. So that doesn't need to come back to this council table with the intention of that. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Steph? Councillor Holland.
Stand here.
Yeah, please.
Steve, so just to clarify, there's no scope for permanent relocation?
That's correct. So council has agreed that wording already that you would not grant consent for a class where you permanently re-established. So that wording has already been agreed to.
Councillor Nelson?
Thanks, Steve. But despite not being permanent, an organisation could be in another facility for up to 36 weeks, say 3 years.
We've proposed 12 months is really the substantive duration that we would be considering, and anything beyond that would need to come back to the hearings committee for reconsideration with evidence, of kind of the outstanding requirements that required on the building to give the council that assurance that progress is being made. We've put 36 as that upper time limit just so that those renewals could continue on forever. But the intention is that that initial duration of 12 months is the
But it could still be 3 years.
it could be up to 3 years, but that would be the hearings committee discretion to reconsider applications with that evidence provided that it's being moved forward.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Goodman?
Yeah, that 3 years is, it's a bit disappointing to me that you've gone so long. It seems excessively long, don't you think? 3 years to, they built, I think they built the Pentagon in 2 years.
So that was advice from our building team, is that if there is structural damage, particularly when you're considering earthquake, that time frame could be 18 to 36 months as an approximate. So we wanted to allow for those situations.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 76, well, I'll move them. Somebody second. Councillor Bowyer. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
So I was on the policy working group. I didn't support the change of wording at the time. I feel like I'm not supporting anything today. But the reasons why is we have a sinking with policy, and this is an opportunity to reduce those numbers of the machines, even on a temporary basis. 36 months is a long time. It's 3 years, and it can be up to 3 years. On page 77 of the council document, there's 4 things that we aim to do as a council: minimise the harm and community caused by gambling, have regard to the social impacts of gambling in the Wairarapa region, including the cumulative effect of additional opportunities for gambling in the district, control Class 4 gambling in the Wairarapa region, and ensuring that council and their communities have influence over the provision of new Class 4 gambling and standalone TAB venues in the Wairarapa region. We don't have to have this temporary word or permanent word put in this document. We can just stick to our sinking with policy and take away the opportunity to have these machines, which I feel are quite destructive to our community.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowyer.
Just to clarify, the hearings, I'm also on the hearings committee, so the hearings committee has the absolute authority to decide whether that is extended out to that 3-year period that has been agreed.
Yes, that's up for discussion.
And adverse effects are very, I believe, limiting. The way that is worded, it gives us the ability to be very specific as to how we apply it. Okay?
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
I've made my point. I think this should go through. We've spent an amazing amount of time on this.
Councillor Goodman.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed to leave the word permanently off this piece of paper. Would have been us simply using the only tool in the box that we're allowed to use by law. And for various people have decided to put permanently in Craig, or the successor could be sitting on a committee, and I can just see a building where they've done the foundations and a couple of the walls, asking for an extension of 12 or 18 months, and I don't think you'd turn it down. So it's a very weak result.
Karen.
Just, it has really been clear that this exception will only apply when there has been an adverse event such as an earthquake or a flood. They're very exceptional circumstances to start with in order to be able to qualify for a temporary relocation, and then it would move on after a year to a discretion for the committee to make a decision. So I just wanted to reiterate, it's not any relocation temporarily, it has to be a result of something quite catastrophic happening to start with.
Councillor Holmes.
What would be the consequences if the two southern councils disagreed with this?
So South Africa has supported the amendment already for 6.1. If there is further disagreement, my understanding is that the Waiaka Policy Working Group in their discussions were happy for Masterton District Council to resolve its own venue relocation policy. So I think South Waiaka and Carterton would be more focused on the relocation policy that applies for their councils. But if there was any discretion or any disagreement, we would recommend going back to the Waiaka Policy Working Group. But I think that would be a very rare case.
Thank you. Councillor Bullen.
Oh, just query on Councillor Yates, Karen Yates. The promoted you.
I'm not sure. No, there's no idea.
Demoted. Point of order.
Is Edvia's event, with roading and fire rates, we heard a lot about Edvia's events and the way they've changed their 10-year to 20-year, etc. Is that defined?
Yes, we've included that in adverse events such as, and it would be something like an earthquake or a flood, and then it would say what is not considered. It does say the policy what's not considered, so if there was a change of lease or something like that. So it's quite clear that it's very narrow.
Councillor Nelson.
So if a building is deemed to be, so there has to be an actual earthquake that happens.
There has to be an
It's not the
event.
result of an earthquake that happened sometime ago.
There has to be there has to be an event that happens that causes damage to the existing venue.
But that event could be in the past, it could have been in the
No.
So, okay. And just to remind everyone what Class 4 gambling is, it's high risk, high turnover gambling. That's what we're supporting. We support this word temporary. High risk, high turnover gambling. We know you spend that money.
Thank you. Yes, the mover of the motion, my argument to that is there's a very small percentage of people who are high risk in this. The figures show that. There are some, and I take it that gambling is a problem for some people, but for the majority of people who gamble, it's recreational, it's fun. And you can't penalise those people as well, in my opinion. So, so that we're right up there. I don't think we can beat the police too much on this. Councillor Dorfman.
Well, I've certainly seen in this community the harm it's done to people, and yeah, it might be fun. There's some things I like to do have fun that I'm not allowed to do either.
Have you seen people enjoying it as well, Councillor, again? Goodwin, without having any problem?
I have seen
Thank you
some
very
people enjoying it, but I've seen the tremendous damage.
Yes, thank you.
That's overlooked a bit, I think. It's not a tiny, insignificant amount.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put the recommendations on page 76, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowie. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. We now move to page number 94, the Disability Advisory Group appointments. Coroner.
Your Worship, Kelsey will
Councillor.
I'll take the paper as read. So this report is council agreement to appoint the Mayor and Councillor Tuta and an alternate to the Disability Advisory Group, and for the terms of reference to reflect that change. Take any questions if there are any.
Okay, any questions? No questions. I'll move the recommendations on page 94. At point 2, where it says appoint Mayor Gary Capel, Councillor Tudor and Councillor Johnson as the alternative member, if I would put that as the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Johnson.
And I'll second that.
Yes.
I second.
I'm seconding.
Oh, you're seconding it?
You moved it, I'm seconding it, so I don't see people disabled interests represented.
So it's moved by myself, seconded Councillor Goodwin, the recommendations on page 94. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Can I just say something? I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate Kelsey on her recent award at the local government as an emerging leader, and to say what a fantastic job you do. So well done.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. Page 102, the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy Work Programme Operating Model and Memorandum of Understanding. Karen? No, Matt, is it?
Matt's
Yes, Karen, you get my boy job today.
Yes, so take the paper as read. So this is seeking your approval to the work program and operating model for the next financial year and to the 2024 to 2027 memorandum of understanding. Just reflecting back at the deliberations meeting, the decision was taken to allocate 80,000 per year for WEDS funding for the next 3 years, as opposed to the 100,000 that it was before. So this is the proposal for how they operate over the next 3 years, and also the proposal for the work program for the next year. One of the big changes in the operating model is that it is going to move more to sort of a stakeholder group and officer and sort of industry representative level, as opposed to involving the mayor and the CE at every meeting. I think Kim and Gary will be the first to tell you that they have spent a lot of time on this work, probably not reflective of the financial contribution to it, and so moving it to that officer level will be able to make it move hopefully more flexibly, and also we would retain the reporting requirements, and I think we're looking to strengthen the reporting requirements of WEDS to council to bring it more in line with the reporting requirements that we see of organisations like Destination Wairarapa, so that more formal quarterly reporting to the Audit and Risk Committee is what we would expect to see from them, as opposed to reporting to the combined councils meeting, which is more a forum without standard reporting requirements.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for me? Yes, Councillor Lena.
Just a comment, not a question.
Any questions, Councillor Goodwin?
Is that on page 112, where have Masterton and South Wairarapa, you've got Masterton 60k and South Wairarapa 75. I don't know when their meetings are. Have they approved those sums?
So they had initially, I haven't had a recent update on whether they had reduced their sums in line with Masterton's decision to reduce. That hasn't been clarified to us yet.
Oh, okay. When do they have, is it today?
I know that it is in the card and agenda that they are keeping this, they were recommending that the same amount be paid, but I don't know. Any further questions? Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on, quite a few of them, recommendations on page 102. Moved Councillor Lena, seconded. Councillor Goya. Okay, any discussion, Councillor Lena?
Yeah, I was really pleased to read this report. Wellington NZ and WEDS were willing to do a review of their work with input from others. I thought that was fantastic, an inquiry into what's working and what's not. And they've come out with a far more specific, targeted and possibly more rigorous approach to measuring their effectiveness. So yeah, I was delighted to see this, and I do have a question I can ask.
Yeah.
Matt, will you be working in this space?
Yes, so from what I understand, I would be part of the group. I'm part of the Regional Economic Development Group that operates in a very similar space, so I would be part of it. I expect there will be someone else from us in District Council as well. So I would be on that.
So, for me it would be, well, I hope you have input into what, how the outcomes are measured.
Yes.
And
so one thing that we've taken note of was obviously the discussion at the deliberations meeting about that Masterton focus on outcomes and being able to say what's been delivered from Masterton. So that's a message that Karen and myself have passed on already, and it's something that we will continue passing on.
yeah, no, that's great. And I'm just thinking in terms of those quarterly reports, it would be good that not only they reported back to us, but perhaps you at a separate time gave us your feedback on where you think they're at, because sometimes we're very good at reporting our own greatness, and sometimes kind of easy to get sucked into it.
Thank you, Councillor Lena. Councillor Johnson.
And in agreement with Tom, I was really pleased to read this report, especially the fact that everyone was willing to sit around the table and take it apart and put it back together again. The other thing I'd like to commend you on is identifying the priorities, especially with water resilience at the top of the pops. And the other thing you identified was what's already been dealt with on a regional level, so not to waste too much time on that, but also to keep in the loop. So that was good, because I always felt that weeds in our area were spread too thinly and trying to do too many things. So I think it's good they're narrowed down. And I really support your three priorities. I'm also interested to see the development of food and fibre, where that leads us, because I know there's already interest in some activity and demand. And I believe that unless we diversify, it will present other economic opportunities, but also too, without water, it's very difficult to diversify. So they're all woven together.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the upcoming reports.
Yeah, and in the food and fibre space, there's also some work. Destination Light It Up also doing some work in that space as well, with Renee Hogg, who's been working with Weeds too, and is the chair of the Skills Leadership Group. So there's already some work kind of going in that space as well from the tourism angle too. So it's all working together.
Great work.
Any further questions? Councillor Clay? Discussion, sorry.
Yeah, just again, I think this is only going to be positive for this group. There has been some discussion as to its ongoing ability to deliver what we think it should. So I think this is very good, and I think the increased accountability. Thank you for that.
Yeah, from my point of view, having been involved in this, they've now got a much narrower focus on work streams, with a sort of do less and do well type approach, and I think that's going to work very well. So that's the recommendations have been moved by Councillor Lena, seconded by Councillor Bowyer. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So now I'll move to the Infrastructure and Services Committee. Karen.
122.
122.
Thank you, Worship. Please, this report was in response to a request from the Chief Executive to look into the merits of disestablishing the Infrastructure and Services Committee. And as you know, the Infrastructure and Services Committee looks after a range of areas within council. It has governance oversight. It has quite limited delegated authority to make decisions. It's been meeting for 6 weeks, and Councillor Holmes is the chair of the meeting, and you are all members of the committee. Officers consider that the committee has been working quite well. It does provide really good discussion of all the matters that it's responsible for. There hasn't really been any duplication of that coming at the council meeting. Very much the minutes are accepted. But it has been operating as quite a useful forum, providing that information out to the community as well through the reporting. On the other side, it does take officers, government officers, 12 hours per meeting to put all the reports together, put the agendas together, and to circulate that information. The other Audit and Risk Committee and the Audit and Grants Committee in Council work also very well in providing that kind of governance oversight. So it is our recommendation that it could be an efficiency gain if the committee was disestablished and the areas of responsibility moved to other committees, so to the Audit and Risk Committee for the 2 regulatory functions that I look after, and to Council for the others. So that would free up that time for officers, and there wouldn't be any decrease in service or accountability or transparency for the community, and still be able to access the council in the same way by reporting through. As a consequence, if the council did decide to disestablish the committee and look to the chairperson, at the moment, as you'll know, the Remuneration Authority allocates a pool of money, and at the beginning of the triennium, you decide what the governance structure looks like and then allocate responsibilities according to that. And so if there was no Infrastructure and Services Committee, there would be no chair. The chair currently receives additional funding on top of the base rate for that. So it's a question of if that money could be reallocated. We do, as things happen throughout the triennium, Councillor Holmes has picked up a number of other responsibilities that hasn't been recognised for that remuneration pool, and that is the chair of the Rural Advisory Group and also the water resilience work. It's the water resilience interim governance group, but there's also lots of other work in that water resilience area that Councillor Holmes has been focusing on. So you may decide that this is effectively a swap, the responsibilities with the other responsibilities, and so the remuneration could be maintained. If it's not maintained, if you want to, Councillor Holmes, more money or less money, then we need to have a look at reallocating the pool and then going back to the Remuneration Authority. I thought I saw in the news that the Remuneration Authority had made their decision for next year, but I haven't received a copy of it yet. I'm looking at everybody else and nobody else has received a copy of it yet. So we would need to go back to the Remuneration Authority and let them know about the change of governance arrangements, but that the funding would be the same. And in view of that, we have also, in anticipation of a decision, amended the schedule of meetings, removing the Infrastructure Services Committee from that schedule. I'm looking at a note that's just about to be written.
Sorry, and just to add to Councillor Holmes' current representation, also the Wellington, for the Greater Wellington MOU around our water, local waters, done well, I think, as well. So also Councillor Holmes is on that advisory group representing Masterton.
Yes, so, sorry I missed that off, that's actually quite a significant responsibility. So yes, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Tudor.
Will the chair of the finance and risk, will they be requiring more remuneration? Do they?
That's not something we had considered, but
Yeah, normally not. It's receiving reports, so I wouldn't expect that the independent chair would require more funding for that possibility.
Any further questions? Okay, somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Moved Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Lennox. Discussion? Councillor Goodwin?
I think there's the less governance is engaged with council. I understand the system is a seesaw between the staff and the council and who runs it, and it's a natural tension. Naturally, you do want to run it, and we try and run it. And
we implement the decisions of council, we're not here running it, so it's...
Well said. And I cast my mind back, David, to the systems of, the subservient committees, policy and finance, resource management, etc., reporting through, so that issues got debated twice. And I don't know if I can say it was necessarily vastly better, but that more time spent debating things is, personally, I think, better. And yeah, so there's a little bit of sorrow to see us come down to such a small meeting structure. Not that government meetings is everyone's favourite occupation, but it is the chance for us to actually perform our jobs in a formal and transparent manner.
Councillor Thompson.
I think it's great that you've looked at the structure and realised where time is money and time can be well spent. And my understanding is that we're not changing the structure. All we're doing is moving the infrastructure and services meeting to the audit and risk meeting, we were all present anyway. And I would imagine too, with an independent chair, and all of us being able to contribute to the discussion, that we'll have robust and transparent discussion as normal.
Just in response, just a couple of the functions would go to audit and risk and the others would come to council. So our expectation is that these meetings become that robust debate from all of those matters.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and one other thing, I'd like to thank you for the work that you have done today, David, and the work that you continue to do.
Thank you, Councillor.
I fully support this move, personally. I think it's a great idea, and I've wondered last time the Beaks was chair, and when I got the job this time, really, our input as chair was not as much as I thought it was going to be. But I have to say that a lot of the work is, and I told the officers when I was given the job that I didn't want any surprises, and I have to say that I didn't get any surprises, but the other work I put into the chair of the infrastructure committee is nothing compared with the other jobs that I'm doing, so I fully accept your decision.
I think too, from my point of view, just looking at what's happening around the council, is that there are a number of councillors who are involved in a number of committees around this council. Some do a lot more than others, you know, I'm sure they're going to appreciate a bit of extra time to themselves, because there are some councillors around this table who are probably twice a week at meetings, and so it's a big load. I noticed too that in the comments made on the latest remuneration authority increase, which looks like it's going to be about, it's out there publicly, 3.7%. A lot of mayors have come out recently saying how very poorly council representatives are recompensed for the work they have to do. And I think that people on the outside realise just how much work is involved with being on council. There's a hell of a lot of work and a hell of a lot of research, and I think this is a positive move. I think this will make a difference to us. So, move to Councillor Johnson, second to Councillor Lennox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We now go to page 128, the Masterton District Council Community Climate Fund recommendations, and I think Bella Duncan is going to be. Now, could I say that both Councillor Tudor and Councillor Lennox were at this meeting, and I'm not so sure whether
Tanya's just going to.
Is there a conflict with Lama and Stella? Having been part of the decision?
No, they're appointed
That's
to the.
fine.
Yeah. Tanya's just going to introduce the paper.
Okay. Hello, Bella.
Oh, I see.
Hello. Hi.
So kia ora, yes, we have, this final decision paper relates to the allocation of the community climate grants. We have $50,000 that we're available to allocate each year. The delegation to make a recommendation back to council sits with our climate advisory group, and we have two members here today. We've got Bella Duncan and Sam Ladden, who have both kindly come along to answer any questions and talk to the paper. A little bit more about that process. As Gary just noted, Marama is our councillor tutor, is our elected member rep who was in attendance. Mayor is the other rep. Unfortunately, he was unavailable, and so Councillor Lennox stepped into this meeting as well. So I'll hand it over to Bella, who was going to say a few words, and we'll go from there.
Could Bella introduce who's the, just not sure who else?
Sorry, this is Sam London.
Oh, cool. Okay, stand, see you with your face up.
Stand to the side so we're right in the
Okay, Bella, over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. Kia ora koutou. Thanks for the opportunity to come and say a few words about this today. So the Climate Advisory Group met about a month ago to talk about the community fund and make some decisions on how we felt that funding should be allocated. So just as a reminder, this is a fund designed for community groups to be able to implement some local level climate action around one of the 4 themes of the Climate Action Plan, with those being community empowerment, circular economy, 20-minute town, and a climate resilient district. So we assessed applications based on the alignment to that Climate Action Plan and also advantage to the Masterton district and community as well. So we had 14 applications come in for $158,000. We, after sort of a first pass, we ruled out 2 of the applications, as were from a Christchurch-based software company called Urban Intelligence, which were the sort of applications were basically for the council to buy their software to implement some of the sort of resilience actions. So while the kind of topic met it, we sort of felt it wasn't really within the spirit of the community fund, which is really to implement local-led action by local community groups. So that left us with 12 applications on a big range of topics, things like waste minimalisation, looking into helping sort of some local groups with how they can increase the sustainability, lots of different really interesting ideas. And after some long deliberations that went on into the evening, as I'm sure Marama and Stella and Sam will attest to, we ended up deciding to either fully or partially fund all 12 of those. There was a lot of discussion around how to do that, what amount would be a meaningful amount for each of those groups. And we sort of looked at their plans and came up with a level of funding that we thought could allow them to either implement an area of their funding, either all of what they had applied for, or to help develop some component of that into a sort of firmer idea for the future. There was quite a lot where they were keen for some funding to sort of act as almost like a seeding funding to help develop an idea into something bigger, to test out whether it would work on a bigger level. So that's where we got to, and I think hopefully you've got a table with what we came to there. Sam or Marama or Stella, you might have something to add.
Sam, do you want to say anything, Sam, first? Love the background, Sam.
O tēnā tātou, rutia te rito o te hara keke, kei whia te kōmako e ko. Hea te mea nui o te ao, nā koe ki atu, he tangata, ti hei mauri ora. Thank you, Bella, tēnā koe, and ngā mihi ki a koutou, e te kaunihira, ngā rangatira i noho atu. Bella did a really good job as explaining quite a difficult night. And it was quite interesting. We had 2 options. The philosophy of choosing the groups was, do we try and fund everybody with a seed funding kind of amount, or do we fund, we decide on a smaller group and fund them to succeed and grow faster. And we sort of fell on the seed funding because as a group, although it was a difficult decision, but as a group we still saw our role as seeding the beginnings of this community resilience and climate change. And so we sort of, after a lot of deliberation, decided we'll go to that kind of spread the love philosophy, but there's merits in choosing 1 or 2 that have excelled with the seed funding that we've already got, or they've already got, to grow faster. It was really hard, but we're in early days, it's the second round. Interestingly, we've had far more applications than we did the previous round, which makes sense. Marty and Janine and the team have done an amazing job at weaving community and making sure everyone knows about this fund. So it stands to reason that we've increased in numbers. And I will say in finishing that those 2 roles that you guys have empowered are critical for growing this kaupapa and empowering resilience within the community. I don't think this fund would work without their mahi. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's sort of, and hats off to you guys, because you're empowering community to really think about this and how do they help themselves to become resilient with the coming climate. I'm not going to say crisis, because I know you guys, it's a controversial way of saying it, but we have huge issues in front of us, and resilience is what we all agree on what needs to happen. I've said enough. Can I hand it over to someone else? Kia ora.
Thank you very much, James. Councillor Lennox.
Yeah, thank you. Kia ora, Sam and Bella and Scarlett. So I just wanted to note, obviously I jumped in here to help Mr Mayor out, couldn't attend the meeting, but I was just overwhelmed by the amount of wonderful initiatives and ideas that are out there within the community. You know, like really the experts do lie outside of this room around this topic. So I was pretty blown away by it, but also kudos to your advisory group. It's really hard, you know, allocating funds to groups when they've sort of submitted something on a bit of paper, and it's tricky. We've all sort of been there to decide, who gets what, but you guys were really robust in your roundabout way of going through it, even though it took a few hours, but I think, you know, you've done a great job, and I'm excited to see some of these projects come to life, come to fruition. So well done, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Tudor, you want to say something?
Tēnā kōrua.
No, it's not.
It's Bella Corksen. Yes, I was at the and it did take a long time. I think we came to a good decision on who got what and how much, and who missed out. But I'm really excited and I suppose blown away by the amount of work the community does, because they believe in this kaupapa themselves, and it's a variety, and it's from the ground up. So I think it's good that we have this fund that can encourage the community to keep doing this, and I look forward to next year.
Thanks, Councillor Tudor. Right, we now move to the recommendations on page 128. Somebody to move the recommendations, page 128. Move Councillor Tudor, seconded Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
Just one question. Kia ora, Kara. I'm not saying I disagree with the decision, but just looking at one of the key things we look at as a council, we've got 20-minute towns in there, and you've got the Urban Intelligence Group, which is a pretty sinister sounding name, to be perfectly honest. They had their two turned down. Is there any particular reason, or can we not discuss that at this meeting?
I think Bella did mention they're out of town.
Sorry, I missed that.
We discussed that at length, and we sort of decided that might be more in your guys' realm, to consider maybe funding it in a different way, because this fund is more for local community. But we decided that it was still important for you guys to consider perhaps it in a different circle.
Thank you, Jam. Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, just on that, it was brought to my attention recently that all councils in New Zealand are signed up as part of Smart Cities, which was news to me. And it was brought to my attention by Gary Tamuri, who's quite active in this space, and also on the residents, newly appointed committee, we go on the Residents Makers Association. So I've asked Karen to delve into that a bit more and see what that means for us, what it represents, and what exactly on a national basis we have signed up to, because I'm sure nobody around the room knows anything about it. So Karen, you're working in that space, aren't you?
Okay.
Just on that note, Bex, Karen and I don't know if you did, but at the last local government conference, there was a whole workshop on smart cities, which I attended around Christchurch. Yeah.
Councillor Nelson?
And there are a lot of people who see them very positively, but a lot of people see them extremely negatively as well. So I think that's something we need to consider.
Thank you. Okay, we've got the recommendations on page 128, moved by Councillor Tutu, seconded by Councillor Lennox. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Thank you so much, Bella and Sam, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Matiwa.
Because of the mayor wanting to go to a little place, we're taking a 2 minutes break.
We need to know.
Thank you for that, folks. I feel much more comfortable now. Page 139, Chief Executive Report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, yeah, this report really, the last probably 6 weeks or so, have been refocused on the LTP and making sure that we reach today without too many speed bubbles. So I just want to thank everybody for their involvement, particularly councillors, to sort of see where we've landed today. I've touched again on the bureaucracy in my report, which is the delays, and that's primarily around sealing the runway and getting that done. So that hasn't stopped a lot of the other good momentum going on, particularly around the reseal, which we have submitted already. So that's with civil aviation at the moment for their review and consideration, and that reseal will determine whether or not any larger aircrafts can come into put. If that reseal is unacceptable to CAA, then at that point we would need to revert back to aeroplanes that are under 20 seats. And a number of construction items are still underway here, almost complete around fencing, etc. Yeah. Another couple of points just to touch on here again, as the Deputy Mayor has said, Kelsey did an amazing job being sort of nominated as an emerging leader at the Tai Tuara Awards, which was in Wellington a couple of weeks ago. And so both Corin and I attended and supported.
Can I ask who dressed you and Corin, just looking at the photo?
Kelsey did.
There is flashes of red with a gold too. Yeah, so no, it was a great event and good to be able to see one of our emerging leaders recognised here in Wellington amongst a large number of peers. So that's probably my report for now. Happy to answer any questions, and my team is here also to support any of the other commentary a little bit further down. So just happy to.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, then Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Great report, thank you very much. I just wanted to ask a question about water services, because it's pretty complex. I know that you've done some work already. I'd just like to know where your thoughts are sitting just at the moment, even though I know there's more work to do. And the other thing is what your thoughts are and whether there's support around the country to extend the time frame. Because it looks like what the government's requesting is not going to be able to be delivered. So would you mind just giving us a little update on that?
Yeah, sure. So actually we've got sort of 4 work streams at the moment operating around the local water done well. Those work streams are an MOU arrangement where we're working collaboratively with the Greater Wellington councils, including Portofino, and part of that is to look at whether or not there's any modelling that would be able to support a sustainable water service delivery model. We have the ability to off-ramp out of that MOU around about August as the first off-ramp, and potentially we can commit through to another stage which will lead us just beyond Christmas. And the idea there is to get as much information as we can now to be able to make a decision on what direction we might head. You'll see in my report around the daunting numbers. The numbers so far, looking at the sort of Greater Wellington area, are quite large. So as part of that too, separately what we're doing is we are running a parallel model where we've got a consultant to model up a Wairarapa only entity, which are the 3 councils down here, and then a Wairarapa and Tararua entity combined. So at the moment that looks quite favourable, some of the numbers, but we're still very early days at this stage about sort of seeing where things will land. So the more information we can get, the better informed we can be to make decisions. So,
and when do you expect to hear back about the request for an extended time frame?
So that's gone through the water services bill now, so do you know the timing is?
Yeah, I think it's around October, and then there's 12 months after the enactment to have your plan in place.
There is a sort of a theme that for an extension has been put out there by most councils, because it's a very short turnaround to be able to get to the 30th of June next year and have a sort of service delivery model or plan in place to be able to then implement 12 months thereafter. So quite a lot of work, but what it will mean, if the bill goes through, is it will mean a real significant change for all the councils across the country, particularly the smaller councils. So because when you pull out all of that revenue and that service offering, it leaves skeleton councils. So a lot of councils, I think, will be discussing amalgamation. And I think for the Wairarapa, that's also something we have to be considering.
Just a follow-up question. So would your inference then be that a change to the water services and the model that we eventually adopt will lead to stimulated talks of amalgamation?
I believe so, yeah. I think we have to think very seriously if we remove water or water gets moved out of councils, what it might mean for us, because we'll still have, it'll be a significant amount of revenue that comes out. And if council's no longer delivering that service, it'll have a big impact. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to follow up, so I don't know. What was the scenario that you said sounded favourable?
Having a water service delivery model, which would be the 3 Wairarapa councils in Tararua. So essentially from Norsewood down to Cape Palliser, potentially, but that's, we still have a lot of modelling to do. We still need to have a lot of conversations to with that council too. So we have had CE discussions at the moment between all the councils. So the more information we can feed back to our elected members.
Okay, Councillor Goodwin, then Councillor Lennox, then Councillor Tutu.
Just the Wairarapa consolidated bylaw review. Since it's only done every 5 years, does that, do we get a chance very shortly to maybe tweak some of the bits in that? The one I'm particularly thinking of, is the bylaws around private sewage rules. Because I know we've limited it sort of now, but I think within 5 years, I've got a feeling it will be a bit more on people's agenda, and it wouldn't hurt to have at least, we don't have to use the bylaw if we put it, but I think that's a good place to start, is to start dialing, turning that up a bit.
That's right. So the bylaw process, I think Karen's probably better to explain it than me, but certainly there's no use having a bylaw unless you're willing to enforce it. So that's a really important point of having a bylaw. So,
Thank you. Councillor Lennox.
Yeah, just in regards, apologies, thanks for your report. In regards to Lagoina, I'm just interested, obviously you talked to the increase, is there a particular theme or certain subject people are delving into? And secondly, just around the one request where we didn't meet the time frame, what are the implications for us around that?
I'll let Karen talk to that one.
Thank you.
I can just quickly respond to Councillor Goodwin's question around, as well as whether information's going to come back. Well, we can certainly feed that information in. Where we are at the moment is trying to get dates in the diary for the policy working group, the joint policy working group across the 3 councils. There's a lot of work on for them at the moment, and it's really quite difficult. But what officers are working the way through the analysis that's required for the committee to have the group to have a good consideration of all of the different issues that we would like to either include in the bylaw or that are not necessary to be covered in the bylaw anymore, or indeed looking at new bylaws. So that's certainly something that we will include within that. And after we've had the discussions, that's great. We'll have workshops with the council on where we want to. So that's that one.
Only just nailed down the days.
Did you want to say anything?
We've only just, in the last couple of days, nailed down some time frames. It's very hard to coordinate all the different councillors. It's probably a little bit of time. there is a real effort to try and get it scheduled and get it done.
Councillor Tuta.
Would you like me to repeat my question?
The Latoya. No, I think I've got it right, but correct me if I'm wrong. So what happens, so when we say we've not completed in the statutory time frame there, you know that we have 20 days. We have to respond as soon as reasonably practicable, but within 20 days. So that's a response to say whether we're going to provide the information or not. It's not actually to provide the information. Just to be very, very clear, we do need to get back within 20 days. So that means that would have gone past that 20 days. And probably what's happened in those circumstances is that as we've been collating information, we realise there's actually quite a lot of information to collate, and then we need to review to determine whether it's in scope or out of scope, and then whether there's anything in there that we would like to withhold. So it actually can be quite a lengthy process, particularly when a requester has asked for all information in relation to. So that's why it's not always we're able to do that. But we are able to indicate an extension of that time. So that would have gone into that extension. It might have only been a week, I'm not sure. We haven't themed them out. We could do that if councillors would like to see what themes. They're usually quite random. But,
I'm intrigued to know, just because
See how you categorise them.
I've done it previously, so there's ways.
Yes, I'm interested. I'm just interested if it's to do with infrastructure, if it's to do with legal stuff. If I'm interested.
Okay.
To remember to understand what people are wanting to find out and why there's an increase as well. Why that to me maybe people aren't trusting us as much as they did.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Next, Councillor Tudor.
Thank you for your report, Tim. For the Lagoima, I've got a question. Why is there in the table on page 1467, why is there only 14 requests in seem to have answered 20? Is there, just explain.
Why is there 14 requests?
Why is it 18?
Well, so it might be because over the period of time, the 23rd of April, these might have been 2 requests that are prior to that time that need to be submitted within the time frame. So
yeah,
that's all.
Right. My next question is on page 140 in the 4th paragraph. You said that there's an airline. I was just wondering if it was an airline that we've already dealt with, and it is, okay. Don't need to which one. And also on the water, I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the national government said that the asset should remain in the hands of the council. This new thing, the new organisation you're talking about with us in Tataroa, still it's keeping it with the council?
Yeah, essentially yes, but it would be the likes of potentially like a CCO. What people are very clearly saying is that it wouldn't involve privatisation at all. So it would be in some form of local ownership, but the control may be out of, and is likely to be out of the control of councils. So therefore the CCO doesn't necessarily, it would be a separate entity, I suppose, set up with the governance board, etc.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you. My question is, it's more a clarification, I guess, around the Ahurea section of your report around the Marae Development Fund. So, as I said, we've got $20,000 in like the climate change group. It was really difficult to try and allocate that when you get double the amount of people applying for the funds. So the group decided on $5,000 each. However, I wanted to get up and talk a little bit about, and it won't be me, but it'll be the Po Ahurea has got to put up an application to the council around extending that past the 25,000, maybe on exceptional circumstances, because one of those applications was from Rangi Māori and Marae. Now, Rangi Māori and Marae is like you consider it your town marae. It's the Anglican Marae here down on Essex Street, I think it is. And they put up for $24,000 to put cover over the front, mainly to Pāpāhere's, the dead body to sit outside, but also for when visitors come so they don't get wet as they're going in. And the only reason that I've put a plug in for them is because they are your go-to marae for this town. They're the only marae that if you want to welcome somebody from other lands, you take them to that marae to do that. Everything you want to do here at council, you rely on that marae being available because that's the picturesque marae, that is the marae. You could take them out to Te Ori, but it's quicker to take them over here. And that's the only reason that I got up to talk about this and why we've asked the Pāpāhere to put up an application for some more funding so we can actually help them out. All the other three were very good applications, but this particular one was the one that I thought we should pay more attention to since you use it. You will also need to use it in times of crisis when you need a place that we can put people who have been displaced from their homes because of various events in the community, and they can get into action straight away. And that's the only reason why I stand here today, is to support whatever, like when the Pāpāhere puts her application up, to actually seriously consider about where any extra funding for the Marae Development Fund could go to support the marae. The other ones would have to contest anyway, but they were all very good applications. It was only that one that I wanted to have a say about. So kia ora. Oh, by the way, the water, last night, I'll let you know this, last night after a lot of talking, a lot of telephones and emails and whatever, I talked with Kahununu and I talked with Rangitane, and they have now approved that I will be their voice on the AOG with the council down in Wellington. So we have an iwi voice there to be able to put forward another voice for Wairarapa. So I just thought I'd tell you that.
Thank you, Joe. Just while you were talking about Joe, you did mention to me before about iwi remuneration, and this is an iwi subject. So do you want to advance that here?
Yep. So the last time I left here was around remuneration for the iwi representative position. And when I look back on the work that goes on here for the iwi representative, it mirrors exactly what the councillors do. And so, like last time, I always look at equity of payment or equity of work. It is what women have fought for all their lives, and that's what I put here today, regardless of whether I'm the iwi rep or not. But this particular kaupapa is around the iwi representative. When I look at the work that I do here as iwi representative, not just representing the views of iwi and Māori here alongside of Marama, but I also look at all the other committees that I mirror a lot of your people that sit on these committees, and I mirror that for the iwi. So you have essentially an extra voice on that committee for Wairarapa. I remember when Kim, when you first started, and we went down to the real deals, or whatever they call it, whatever those deal things are. And I remember saying to you, well, if Wairarapa's not in it, and I'm not interested, to be honest. And that's why, and I said that to the guy who was running the workshop. I said, if Wairarapa isn't in it, we're not interested as iwi from Wairarapa to be here, because we are just as important as everybody else around this table. So, and this will go for water and everything else. So as an iwi rep, we come to your meetings. We also actually help to voice the needs of Wairarapa by backing you. And I said to Kim, when I spoke to him on the phone before you went to your AOG, is that the iwi will stand beside these councils, all 3 or 4 of them. We will stand beside you around the water issues, because it's in everybody's interest that we do that. And we will remain committed to that, just like we're committed to being iwi representatives on your council, to bring to this council the people that need to be here. In those LTP meetings, just trying to get our whānau to meetings was really hard. So I was pleased when we had a session here that we had our investment group here to talk, because they were really interested in what's been going on. Kahununu is starting to grow and starting to blossom, and their investment teams will follow as well. But it doesn't mean that they are not interested. They are very interested. They're just reorganising themselves and getting themselves up and running. And soon the Kahununu rep will be at this table as well, voicing their opinions. That's why I say to this council, when you're talking about remuneration, when you're talking about voting and having a voice on this committee, this is where we need their voice to be heard as well. And we need it in an equitable, that's right across everything, including remuneration, to be put to this table so you guys can consider it when you go to your discussions with the Remuneration Authority. I know it's not in the Act, but then if it's not in the Act, then how come other councils are doing it? And they're bigger councils, I get it, but with bigger councils, bigger bills. So I put that to the committee for consideration.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment, Joe, thank you for that. Councillor Bullock.
If I heard right before, the Remuneration Authorities granted councils
3.7 we've been told.
3.7 or something. Yes, yeah. Right. What's it, 28 or 29,000? Something like that. I would have thought that would be a good time to be looking at how we allocate our remuneration pool.
The council's 8 elected members are the only ones who can share in the remuneration pool that the local government remuneration authority nominates the dollar value of. So they tell us this many dollars, you divide it up according to your decision-making process around responsibilities, but it's for the elected members. If the council has a co-opted member, which is Joe, and it's a council decision on the remuneration that comes from a different, it comes from the council's elected representation budgets, but there's no other authority giving us instructions on what that amount should be.
But we have written to the Remuneration Authority previously advocating that they are able to look also at EU representation, at how EBR representatives are remunerated, to take that under their portfolio. I'm not sure we received a response back.
Thank you for raising that, Joe. Councillor Hart.
I just wanted to follow up on Kim's report on the water. Local water done well. On Monday there were 2 very, very good submissions presented to the select committee. One was by Ron Mark, who was terribly nervous, couldn't believe it. Sorry, he was nervous. And the other one on behalf of the 3 councils, which I thought was exceptional, was done by Robert Wales. And I just think a lot of this information here is really in-house. We just need to be careful where it goes.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman.
On that water services delivery thing, and given their timetable, they're going to be looking at the condition assessments, etc., that we're doing. Are we increasing our spend on condition assessment, for instance, which currently, I don't know, I think most of our items, especially are about 50% certain. Is that, are we...
So on asset management, are you talking, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we are.
Well, and it sounds to me like they're asking for probably more than...
So our model that we have to provide once the bill goes through will be based on condition reports of all of our assets, and that would need to form some of the foundation towards the sustainability component of the bill of being able to be financially sustainable through investment over a period of time. So we will have to have accurate data. We are looking right now to put in place an asset management platform, software I suppose. Ms might want to talk to us a little more to ensure we capture all that data. So we know exactly what we've got. At the moment we don't have that. We have lots of spreadsheets and different systems that we collect that data. So having it in one central reporting is the focus there. So,
but even that side of it aside, the actual, I interpret that we are going to probably have to lift our game asset assessment, a condition assessment of our assets. Would that be right?
Yes, Councillor, that's right. There'll be a more intensity in terms of understanding how we validate our numbers and, you know, where we get that actual information from. So, as kind of said, we are looking at a platform now, and we have a reasonable work program ahead of us around improving our asset management practices and methodologies.
So you have got the budget over the next 12 or so months to accelerate that.
Yes, no further questions. I will move that we receive Kim's report. Seconded. Councillor Holmes, all in favour? Aye. We now come to the meeting reports from councillors. Stella and Bex, I think. Stella, do you want to?
Short thing. Okay, so thank you. Last night I attended on behalf of Gary the Shelter Masterton AGM. Now Shelter Masterton are the community group that run Tumanaki, the home that we went and visited, do you remember? And also the Day Refuge, which is behind St Matthew's Church. So just a quick little bit of information from there. Basically, in a nutshell, they're still supporting up to 15 people a day with sort of a lunch and helping people with clothes, etc. The Tumanaki House has had huge success. The 2 or 3 last night of the residents actually spoke, one of which has since moved out of the home and is now living his own life. So just phenomenal turnaround for these people's lives. So the house being there is a no-brainer, a wonderful thing for our community and these people. They've got people in there teaching these guys literacy, volunteers, always short of volunteers, so if any of you want to raise your hands and do a bit of volunteering, I'd really appreciate it. Obviously, there was talk earlier in the year about the day shelter closing down and not being able to be open due to sort of volatile behaviour and the sort of risk, I guess, to volunteers, but that's since sort of been managed better, so they're going to remain open, which is great. Just general, all good, amazing stuff coming out from the community, and they're actually making a little bit of money, but obviously they get lots and lots of grant funding, etc. as well, so that's all really positive. Just in regards to the refugee steering group, so just a quick update there, sorry, right, pushing you along there. We now have over 20 families that have come from refugee backgrounds in Masterton, so that's something I think is remarkable, and the community are so great at accepting and enabling these people to live amongst us and us amongst them. I think it's great. It was World Refugee Day on 20th of June. I drove down to Wellington. There was a celebratory service at Parliament. So listening to some of the stories of the people that have got to be here in New Zealand was quite remarkable. And the Minister for Minister for Refugees, did speak about the Welcoming Communities program that's up and running, and I was waiting for her to say, and we're going to continue it, but that didn't come out of her mouth, sadly. But she talked about how wonderful it was, so maybe we could remind him how wonderful it is, and they could look at opening their pockets and let it continue for a bit longer. Also in September, we're looking at having another pool fee to welcome the new residents, refugee residents. And just around that funding I talked about in a previous meeting, so Immigration have given us grant funding for 3 initiatives that the refugee group have come up with. One is just innovative community initiatives, so the community can come to us and sort of say, look, we want to run this workshop, or we've got an idea for a course or whatever, so that's great. So they're sort of leading that themselves. And then a business course for the refugee women. A lot of them are most amazing cooks, so they're going through the course of actually being able to maybe look at having a food truck down on First Night food stalls, or be part of that community, which is great. So, earning money for themselves whilst being, part of the wider community. And also the Employment Expo is all go. But what we've done there in regards to that is because the refugee community is obviously smallish, we'll run that expo in the morning for them, and then we're going to actually open it up to the wider community. So So it'll be a win-win for everybody. All right? And that is really it.
Thank you very much.
Almost
Councillor. We've been a busy lady. Just to mention about the new residents, we don't have to be all new residents. If we have the citizenship ceremony coming up, we've already got more than 30 people coming to becoming new citizens. So it's going to be a whopper of a ceremony. Right, Bex.
Just an update on the Wairarapa Youth Governance Oversight Group this year. The Wairarapa hasn't met because our AGM is in a couple of weeks. Jill Flower from Wairarapa Police has replaced Scotty on the board, and we're just doing, I'll call it boring stuff, but necessary stuff at the moment. We didn't discuss cases last meeting because we're working on an independent IT program which will securely store all the documentation that comes from the cases that we work with and discuss, which is separate to OT and separate to WINS, and the police are looking at a program that's been run in other communities where people's information and consent forms are safe, but it's accessible to the oversight group.
It's like our system.
Our system's not safe, Brent, and you should know that.
Incredibly safe.
So Jill's looking into an independent system that can store the information, so that's work in progress. And also Wairarapa Community Networks is looking at, in the future, facilitating the meetings now that we've had nearly 2 years of doing this and council running it and picking it up and using their networks and groups to actually facilitate and run the meetings moving forward. So it's just a bit more of a backroom update, and we'll see that it moves on.
Councillor Tudor.
Sorry. Could I ask Councillor Lennox, the refugee people, where do they come from?
So the majority of them have come from Pakistan, but we have got some new families coming from some other countries that I can't disclose on here. But yeah, but majority, if not all of them, come from Pakistan.
And when they come in, are there houses available for them?
Yeah, so they all go to Auckland usually first, and they spend some time up there, and then they get sent to the areas that they're assigned to, so Masterton. And yeah, so Red Cross do all of that work. They find housing, education, employment. So myself being on that group is part of that greater circle. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, three. Now go on to the Mayor's report. Just quickly, I'll go through these. I sat in with Councillor Holmes on that combined submission from the three councils on the Water Services Bill, which was done by Zoom. That was to the Select Committee, and I have to agree with Councillor Holmes. Robin Wells did an outstanding job presenting the submission from the three councils. It's interesting when you see them sitting there on Zoom, as David would say, it's hard to know how they're reacting or not, quite frankly, but they did ask a question or two, so that was something. You'll see, you will have seen probably that there's now 56 mayors or chairs, including myself, who have indicated the disappointment at the government holding a referendum on Maori wards. And I must say, I just want to mention there's been a couple of really good articles that Murrum has taken part in the local papers over there. Murrum, thank you for that. That's great. New Zealand Volunteer Week Volunteer Work Function Week. I'll go back. The New Zealand Volunteer Week. We had a function here run by our community development team in consultation with in conjunction with the community centre, and that went really well. Bex was there as well. Really good opportunity to thank our volunteers for all the working. Another little thing I had, I mean, you get a lot of things when you're there, you go to a lot of things, but I went to a community coffee morning tea at Douglas Park, and it was really lovely, Douglas Park School, with meeting these little kids who were just so interested in what was going on, showing me their computers with what they were doing. It was a great sort of morning, and I've been invited to a few more of those school ones, and if you get the opportunity to go to those, they're really, really worthwhile. And the other, just finally, we had a Mayors and Deputy Mayors meeting the other day with the other two councils. We took the opportunity to talk to Mike Butler come along, and I think Bex would agree that he was really, really good to talk to in terms of the water, the Judds Road rail crossing situation, the speed limits. We discussed a whole lot of things over with Mike, and he was really good. And then in terms of the meeting with the other mayors and deputy mayors, there was just a good feeling, I think, in the room that the council's, even though there's been a little bit of angst regarding amalgamation from one particular quarter, I think things are still working along okay as far as the three councils go. And you'll notice with my report, we've also got the New Zealand government, the local government of New Zealand March to June report is in your papers. That's a very comprehensive report from local government New Zealand and well worth a read. So I'll move that you receive my verbal report and then you receive the LGNZ report. Somebody second David. All in favour? Say aye.
Discussion?
Thank you.
Discussion?
Oh yes, discussion.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. When we met with Mike about the speed limit review, and then you will have all seen the information where they're looking at reversing decisions that they made, it's still a public consultation process. So don't think that it's automatically going to happen. They still need to hear from people who want to change back again. So particularly, AA, transport operators, contractors, those people who are finding the 80k limit unbearable need to actually go through this consultation process and let people know that they need to be at reverse, because otherwise they'll just be looking at the numbers again, and you will get safety people, or you will get people who just say it's great at 80k, leave it as is. So through your networks, if you know of people that object to it being reduced from the 100 to the 80, could you please make sure that when the public round happens, that they put in submissions with their cases. And the other thing is too, because there was a local government report in here, which is the first time I've seen that document. I found it really interesting reading. I just wanted to raise that you will all know that Christchurch is pulled out of that. And so that's the two biggest councils in New Zealand. I'm not sure Wellington and Christchurch are similar size. That's pulled out of LGNZ. And we did discuss it last time and said we would renew for another 12 months. But I think it's important to have that discussion again. And just wanted to lay that on the table. And I'd like to be reminded too of the cost it is to us, and also, excuse me, what staff feel benefits. Yeah. 17A review on LGNZ.
Councillor Tutor.
Thank you for your report, Gary. I know when I read the LGNZ report, they said that there was a ratepayers assistance scheme. I was just wondering if that was for our ratepayers too.
To be honest, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I'm
going to be totally honest with you, Mary. I have not read the report yet.
And I read it in the report, and it's the first time I've seen it. So it's an initiative of Auckland and Tauranga in particular, looking to build a fund of money that can be utilised in a number of ways, and one of those is rates postponement. So yeah, it's not something we've had any involvement in.
I have another question, but this will be from Bex. When was the consultation for the road changes?
It'll be a few months away, because apparently the whole process is going to take 12 months anyway, just because of legislation. But I think Mike said about October or something.
Finishes at the end of July, consultation finishes at the end of July.
Oh, so, okay, so it must be...
Just go onto the NZTA website and there'll be a link.
It's a big
there'll
one.
be a link that you can go to and go on.
So the consultation process to get that done in the first place?
Yes, it was a consultative process done in the first place.
Ignored.
To arrive at that, they used a document they used to call Megamax to arrive at how safer roads. 10% of New Zealand roads look to be in that category. They're now bringing that down to 1% of New Zealand roads. This has already, we spoke about this last night, NZTA have already done a safety analysis on the state road due to the number of complaints. They will be putting in a submission. This submission process is independent to NZTA. Okay, so they will be putting in a submission as well, and public consultation, and I urge any of you who have an opinion on this to put in your views.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Bass. Okay, Councillor Gore.
I suppose I hope people do engage in consultation, because certainly, a lot of people get disillusioned with consultations because nothing changes. But I wish luck with that. And that rates postponement of funding to the Health Council, is that something going forward, looking at our high arrears now and probably rising, we should certainly keep an eye on that, especially with our increased spending.
Thank you, Councillor Gore. Okay, any further?
Yeah, if you try your luck, Gary, you might get an invite to Lakeview one day.
Sorry?
You might get an invite to Lakeview School one day.
Thank you. Thank you, I look forward to that. Okay, that's that finished. We now, would somebody move, we move into public excluded. Moved Councillor Holmes, seconded Councillor Bayer, all in favour?
Right.
If you've got 1 minute.